In the previous episode, we have seen how to build the project with the Webpack, but we did not configure .env libraries while building the project. So in this episode, we're going to see how to configure .env while building the project with Webpack and see how we can generate artifacts for specific environments. If you look at this diagram, we have generated api.bundle.js in the previous episode without any environment specific variables. The problem with this, if you take that bundle and if you deploy into different environments, all the environments will have same environment specific variables. That means every environment such as development, test, production, every environment will have the same port, which is 4000 or any port that you specify by default, and also we'll have the same database connection URL. So which is a problem. So that's why we need to configure .env library while building the Webpack. If you look at this, while building the project, we have to inject environment specific variables and it produces an artifact whatever the environment you specify. So for example, if you build the project with dev webpack.config.js, it builds the artifact for development. If you build the project with production webpack.config.js, it builds the artifact with production variables so that the same artifact can be deployed in different environments. So this can be achieved in different ways. Let's get started. Yeah, here is our code where we are reading environment variables in configuration file, and also we are reading a port in index.js. So we have a webpack.config.js where we are building the application, but when you build the application, we are not reading from environment variable files. So let's test thing out. Let's build the application and let's run the application with node dist /api bundle.js. So when you run the application, right now the application is running on 3000 and the environment is development. So right now, let's test whether the application is up and running. Yes, the application is up and it is listening to the port 3000. But there is an issue here. Here there is a default values. If nothing is coming from the environment variables, there is a default value defined for all these variables. So that's why it is taking those default values. It is not getting the values from environment files, .env files. So since we are using .env library, when you build the application with Webpack, this Webpack has to get the values from these .env files. So first we need to fix that issue. Yeah, if you go to index here, let's remove that. Let's test this scenario where we do not have any default values. Let's run the application. Let's build the application and run the application and see whether the app works or not. Yeah, let's remove all these default values. So once we remove these default values, we just build the application and run it. I know it won't work, but let's test it out. The application is built and let's run it. Now you can see it is not able to find the values. So that's why we had this error, connection error, where it is not able to connect to the database. because it is not getting the values from .env files. So since we are building the application with Webpack, so there is a plugin in Webpack where you can install and you can read it from .env files. So the Webpack name is .env, webpack.env, where you can actually define the .env file and pass this plugin in the webpack.config.js file. So to do that, let's install this plugin as a dev dependency. Since we are building the code in the development, you don't need this plugin in the production. So that's why it gets added to dev dependencies. Now that is added, let's go to webpack.config.js and let's copy that import statement, paste it here. So once imported, all we need to do is pass this plugin in the plugins array. So we already have one plugin, which is copy plugin. So let's pass this plugin as well. So now the plugin is added. Let's start the application. Let's build the application and start. Still we are facing this issue because all our .env variables, all our .env files are in a different folder called environments. So that's why it is not able to pick up the values from .env file at the root. So that's why you just need to pass the path option in the configuration object. So let's copy this and pass this option. And in the path value, we just need to give environments/.env. So now it picks up the default .env file. Let's build the application and run it again. So we just started the application. Now application is working fine. So and it is also taking the port is 4000 now. So it is taking that port value from .env file. And here the development. So environment development, it is coming from the node environment variable. So we just need to change from node environment to environment. It's because we mentioned the mode equal to development in the webpack config.js. That's why it is taking that as a development. So now we have changed it. Now let's test it out, whether the environment is coming from the .env file or not. Yep, now you can see the environment is local. So the port is 4000 and the environment is local. So these two values are coming from .env file. So which is exactly what we wanted. But there is an issue here. Since we are building this application for different environments, we just need to pass write webpack or write .env file while building the application. So you can build the application for multiple environments. So that's why we have to. There are a number of ways you can achieve it. One way is to maintain multiple webpack config files. So let's create multiple webpack config files for each environment and let's test it out how it works. So I just created webpack dev.config.js. Now I'm creating webpack test.config.js and we have another environment called webpack prod.config.js. Let's rename the last one to webpack-prod.config.js. So all the configuration is same. All we need to do is in each configuration object or in each configuration file, we just need to pass the right .env file. This is little bit verbose because we are maintaining multiple webpack.config.js files for a simple file. So we will see how we can eliminate multiple webpack.config.js in few minutes. But let's test this thing out. So let's add npm scripts as well for each build. So build dev it is taking the webpack config webpack dev config.js, and build test will take webpack test config.js, and build prod will take webpack prod config.js files. So since these file names are different than default webpack config.js file name, so you have to pass these file names as a config flag. Now let's run these. Let's build for different environments. So we just build for development. That's why the port is 4001 and the environment is development. So these values are coming from .env.dev. And the app is also running fine, and you can see the default message in the browser. Now let's test it out other two as well. So I'm building for test environment now. Let's build it out, and now let's run the application again. Yep, we can see now the port is 4002 and the environment is test. So these values also coming from the environment file, which is .env.test. And finally, let's build for prod. Okay, this is a test for test environment, and let's build for prod and then test it out. So it's kind of redundant, but we just need to test all the environments since the tutorial is about building NodeJS REST API for different environments. That's why I'm testing. It's a kind of redundant, but let's test it out. Now you can see the port 4003 and the production. Now the 4003 also working fine. So that is how you build the Node.js REST API for different environments by maintaining different webpack config.js files and passing those files as flags to the webpack command. But it is kind of redundant, or there are unnecessarily we are maintaining multiple files. So let's instead of that, we can maintain a variable like we maintained in index.js. We just maintain a variable and just pass that variable based on the environment that we are running. So that's why let's copy from index.js that environment file path variable, and let's copy it and put it there. Now we don't need this config. We don't need to pass that webpack config file because we are using only one webpack config.js here. and under that also at the root folder we don't have to pass config flag. So all we need to do is we just need to use cross environment and we just need to pass node env variable while running the webpack command. So now we have changed npm scripts and we are not using those files anymore, and we are using only one file, which is webpack.config.js. And then by maintaining a variable and by reading the node environment process environment variable, we are dynamically changing the environment that you are passing to the particular .env plugin. So now the application is running, and this is running, it is taking default because we are not passing any node environment. Now let's build for development. For development we are passing node env is dev. Now it should take those port and environment variables from .env.dev. Yep. So this is taking from that particular .env.dev file. So let's test it out for other npm scripts, which is npm run build test and npm run build prod. So let's test it out quickly. Yep. Now the port is 4002 and the environment is test. Let's build for prod and let's test that thing out quickly. Yep, we can see the port is 4003 and the environment is production. So by maintaining a dynamic variable, we can simply eliminate multiple webpack config.js files. So it all depends how you maintain application. So there are a number of ways you can build your NodeJS REST API for different environments. We have seen only two, but there are other ways as well. So let's move all these webpack files to a folder called webpack. So I'm going to create webpack folder, and then let's move all these files to that webpack folder. Since the default webpack config.js file is moved to webpack folder, we just need to pass this particular file location with a config flag to the webpack command. Let's do that. Let's copy that config flag. Okay, now we have added config flag. Maybe let's test it out, a simple build. Oh, somehow it is not, since the webpack config.js file is moved, and we have to change all the paths, relative paths in the webpack config.js file. So the entry file is not at the root anymore, so you need to change the path with path.resolve. Let's change those. Let's make all the changes, whatever needed. So we have to change the output path as well. And the copy plugin. Yep. So we have changed all the relative paths. Let's try to build the application. So that's why, even though it is redundant, that's why we are testing the application for every step. So something is wrong. I think environment file is missing. So I don't think the environment file path is correct. So we just need to use path.resolve here as well. So change the paths and make sure we use path.resolve, and this application should work again. Let's build the application. So now the application is running fine and the values are coming from default.env file. So we just need to make sure all the paths are correct, since we moved that webpack.config.js file from the root folder to webpack folder. So now we are testing one of the environment. We don't have to test all three environments, so we just need to test one environment. Yep, that environment is also working fine. The values are coming from .env.dev. So we have only changed these paths in one webpack config.js. In case if you want to use other webpack config files, you have to change the relative paths in other files as well. So we don't have to do it right now. In case, we are not using those, so it doesn't matter. So that is how you build your NodeJS REST API with Webpack for multiple environments. So there are a number of ways, but we can always choose what is needed for your project. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.